December 1944. A lone P-51 Mustang screams toward Earth at 450 miles per hour, straight into a formation of 8 FW-190s. The other pilots watch from altitude, certain they're witnessing a suicide. The dive is too steep, the angle too reckless. They call it madness over the radio. But the pilot inside that Mustang has done the mathematics. He knows what fear makes men forget. That gravity, when harnessed with precision, becomes the deadliest weapon in the sky. The winter sky over Germany in late 1944 holds no mercy. At 28,000 feet, the cold bites through leather and wool. Oxygen masks thrust at the edges, engine oil thickens, every breath tastes metallic, thin, wrong. The bombers below are bleeding. Flak has torn holes in their formations. FW-190s circle like wolves, patient and disciplined, waiting for stragglers to fall behind. This is the air war in its final, most brutal phase. The Luftwaffe is dying, but dying things fight hardest. German pilots have learned to exploit the Mustang's one weakness: hesitation at high deflection angles. American doctrine preaches caution. Preserve the aircraft, preserve the pilot, engage only with tactical advantage. But doctrine doesn't account for geometry, or for men who see patterns where others see chaos. The 357th Fighter Group has been airborne for 3 hours. Fuel is calculated to the minute. Every gallon burned in combat is a gallon not available for the return to England. The mission, his escort, not glory. Stay close to the bombers, discourage attack, survive. Then the call comes through. Bandits. 8 o'clock low. FW-190s moving in a climbing spiral, positioning for a beam attack on the B-17s. The bomber crews are already ragged. Another pass might fold the formation entirely. Standard response: shallow dive, maintain energy, engage from the flank. Textbook stuff. The kind of maneuver drilled into every pilot from training onward. But one Mustang breaks hard left and rolls inverted. The dive angle is insane, nearly vertical. The others think it's a malfunction, maybe oxygen deprivation. No one attacks like that, not into a prepared enemy formation, not alone. The radio crackles with confusion, then silence. They watch him fall, silver wings catching the pale winter sun, and they expect him to pull out. He doesn't. If this history matters to you, tap like and subscribe. His name is Captain Raymond Littge. Before the war, he taught mathematics at a high school in Pennsylvania, geometry mostly, triangles, angles, the logic of space and motion. He didn't dream of flying, he dreamed of proofs, elegant solutions to problems that seemed, at first glance, unsolvable. When the draft came, he enlisted in the Army Air Forces not out of patriotism, though he felt that too, but out of curiosity. He wanted to see if the principles he taught could translate into 3 dimensions at 300 miles per hour. He wanted to know if logic could survive chaos. Flight school revealed something unexpected. He was naturally gifted. Not in the way some pilots were, those instinctive gunfighters who flew by feel and fury. Littge flew by calculation. He saw the sky as a coordinate system, every aircraft a moving point, every maneuver a vector. His instructors noted it in his file. Precise, methodical, uncheckable under pressure. But they also noted something else. He questioned orders, not out of insubordination, out of curiosity. If a maneuver was taught a certain way, he wanted to know why. What were the assumptions? What if those assumptions changed? His classmates found it annoying, his instructors found it dangerous. The military runs on conformity, and Littge was a man who refused to accept any answer that began with, "because we've always done it that way." He graduated near the top of his class and was assigned to the 357th Fighter Group in England. By late 1944, he'd flown 60 missions. He'd seen men die in every way the sky allows: fire, collision, flak. He'd learned that survival wasn't about bravery, it was about geometry. The man who understood angles lived. The man who didn't burned. And Littge had started to see an angle no one else was using. The problem was this: German fighters had adapted. Early in the air war, American pilots held every advantage: speed, numbers, firepower. The P-51 Mustang could outrun, outclimb, and outgunned almost anything the Luftwaffe fielded. But by late 1944, the surviving German pilots were the ones who'd learned to neutralize those advantages. They stopped dogfighting. Instead, they used slashing attacks. High-speed dives from altitude, a single firing pass, then a climbing turn back to safety. The FW-190 excelled at this. It was heavy, sturdy, and brutally fast in a dive. If a Mustang tried to follow, the German pilot would pull into a tight spiral climb, forcing the American to either break off or bleed energy in a turning fight he couldn't win. American doctrine adapted with caution. Engage only with an energy advantage. Never follow a diving enemy below 10,000 feet. Preserve fuel and altitude. It worked. It kept losses manageable, but it also meant the bombers kept bleeding. Because while the Mustangs stayed high and cautious, the FW-190s kept slipping through. A single German fighter could scatter a bomber box, force evasive maneuvers, break formation cohesion. Then the flak would find them, or another fighter group would finish the job. Bomber crews started calling it the gauntlet. You could see the enemy. You just couldn't stop him. Littge watched this happen mission after mission. He watched FW-190s dive through American formations, untouchable, untroubled, because they knew no one would follow. The mathematics gnawed at him. The problem wasn't the aircraft, it was the doctrine. Everyone assumed a near-vertical dive was too dangerous, too fast, too disorienting. But Littge had done the math. A Mustang in a 70-degree dive, properly trimmed, could reach terminal velocity in under 15 seconds. At that speed, deflection shooting became almost impossible for the enemy. You weren't turning, you weren't maneuvering. You were a ballistic object, predictable, unstoppable. And if you timed it right, you could punch through an enemy formation before they even registered you as a threat. He brought it up at a briefing. The squadron commander listened politely, then dismissed it. Too risky, too much speed. What if you can't pull out? What if the wings fold? What if you black out? Littge tried to explain the physics. Wing loading, G tolerance. The Mustang's structure could handle it. But the commander wasn't interested in theories, he was interested in pilots coming home. So Littge stopped talking about it, but he didn't stop thinking. November 1944, a training flight over the English countryside. The sky is overcast, visibility poor, no one is watching. Littge climbs to 20,000 feet, levels off, and rolls inverted. He doesn't announce it over the radio, he just noses over and lets gravity take him. The dive is vertical. The altimeter unwinds like a broken clock. The airframe shudders, the controls stiffen. At 400 miles per hour, the Mustang feels less like an aircraft and more like a shell fired from a cannon. The G-forces press him into the seat. His vision narrows, the horizon disappears. At 8,000 feet he begins the pullout. Slow, steady, no sudden movements. The nose rises. The wings flex but hold. The pressure eases. He levels off at 3,000 feet, heart pounding, hands trembling, but alive. The Mustang is intact. The math was right. He does it again the next week, and the week after that. Each time he refines the technique. He learns the exact throttle setting, the precise angle of trim, the moment to begin the pullout to avoid blackout. He discovers that the human body can endure more than doctrine assumes, if the mind stays calm, if the logic holds. But logic isn't enough. He needs proof that it works in combat. He needs witnesses. December 5th, 1944. The mission is deep escort over Merseburg. The sky is crowded, B-17s in tight boxes, Mustangs weaving overhead. And below, climbing fast. 8 FW-190s in a textbook attack formation. This is the moment. Littge doesn't ask permission. He doesn't wait for orders. He rolls inverted, pulls the stick forward and dives straight at them. The other pilots shout warnings over the radio. They think he's panicking. They think he's lost control. But Littge isn't panicking. He's counting. Airspeed, 420. Altitude, 22,000. Distance to target, 1,800 meters and closing. The FW-190s are still climbing, unaware. They're watching the bombers. They're not watching above. At 12,000 feet, Littge is a meteor. The German pilots see him too late. One tries to brake left, another rolls right. The formation scatters. Littge doesn't fire yet. He's still diving, still accelerating, cutting through the center of their group like a blade through silk. The closure rate is so high that by the time the Germans react, he's already past them. Then he pulls. The G-forces slam into him. His vision greases. The stick feels like iron, but the nose rises, and suddenly he's climbing again. Energy bleeding off in a controlled arc, and the FW-190s are below him now. Disorganized, vulnerable. He rolls, dives again, this time at a shallower angle, and his guns find metal. Cannon fire rips into the nearest FW-190. Pieces fly off the wing. Smoke trails from the engine. The German pilot bails out, chute blossoming white against the gray sky. The other 7 scatter and flee. Littge climbs back to altitude. His wingman catches up, voice shaking with disbelief. He asks what just happened. Littge doesn't answer right away. He's still checking his gauges. Fuel, oil pressure, airframe integrity, everything nominal. He tells his wingman it's just geometry. The squadron commander doesn't believe the after-action report. A single Mustang diving into 8 enemy fighters and scattering them? It sounds like propaganda or delusion. But the bomber crews saw it. They confirmed the dive. They confirmed the kill. And more importantly, they confirmed what happened next. The German formation broke off entirely. 15 B-17s made it home that would have been mauled otherwise. The commander calls Littge into his office. He's angry and confused. What you did violated every tactical principle we teach. You could have died. You could have lost the aircraft. Why? Littge explains the math, the angle, the speed, the psychological effect. A vertical dive creates a closure rate the enemy can't process. It bypasses deflection entirely. It turns the Mustang into a projectile, and projectiles don't dogfight. They penetrate. The commander listens. Then he asks the only question that matters. Can you teach it? Littge says yes. 2 days later, he's standing in front of the entire squadron. 30 pilots, skeptical and exhausted, staring at diagrams on a chalkboard. Littge draws vectors. He explains energy states. He talks about terminal velocity and control surface loading. Half the room thinks he's insane. The other half just wants to sleep. But then he shows them the film. Gun camera footage from the December 5th mission. The dive. The scatter. The kill. 30 pilots watch in silence as a lone Mustang punches through an enemy formation and emerges untouched. When the lights come back on, no one is skeptical anymore. 3 pilots volunteer to try it under controlled conditions. They go up the next morning. Littge leads. They climb to 25,000 feet over the channel. He demonstrates the dive. They follow. One pulls out too early. One nearly blacks out. But the third, a young lieutenant from Ohio, nails it. Perfect angle, perfect speed, perfect recovery. He lands grinning, hands still shaking. He tells the others it's like riding lightning. Littge corrects him. It's like understanding lightning. There's a difference. Within a week, half the squadron is practicing the maneuver. They call it the Knight's Charge, a name Littge neither chose nor endorsed. But the name sticks, and so does the tactic. December 24th, 1944, Christmas Eve. The Luftwaffe launches a surprise counterattack during the Battle of the Bulge. German fighters swarm the front, targeting Allied ground attack aircraft and struggling bomber formations. The 357th is scrambled in terrible weather. Visibility is near zero. The bombers are scattered. Chaos. Then the FW-190s appear, 16 of them, diving out of cloud cover, guns blazing, and 6 Mustangs roll inverted in unison and dive straight at them. The Germans don't scatter this time. They try to fight. But the closure rate is overwhelming. The Mustangs punch through, guns hammering, and 3 FW-190s fall in the first 10 seconds. The rest break formation. 2 collide in the confusion. The others flee into the clouds, and the bombers escape intact. No American aircraft are lost. The tactic spreads. Other groups hear about it. Some dismiss it as reckless. Others try it and fail, losing pilots to G-lock or structural failure. But the ones who learn it properly, who understand the mathematics, survive. And more importantly, they protect the bombers. By February 1945, the Night's Charge is being taught at advanced fighter school in the States. The maneuver that began as one man's unauthorized experiment has become doctrine. The very thing Littge questioned, he's now part of writing. But the war isn't over, and neither is his work. Spring 1945. The air war over Germany enters its final desperate phase. The Luftwaffe is collapsing, but its remaining pilots fight with suicidal ferocity. Mi-262 jets appear sporadically, too fast to intercept, too few to matter strategically. The skies are crowded with burning aircraft, parachutes, and wreckage. Every mission feels like the last. Littge flies his 83rd sortie on April 10, 1945. The target is a rail yard outside Berlin. The flak is murderous. The bombers stagger through it, trailing smoke and fire. German fighters appear, FW-190s and Bf-109s, mixed formations, poorly coordinated but still dangerous. Littge leads his flight into a Night's Charge. 4 Mustangs, 4 vertical dives. The German formation disintegrates. 2 fighters destroyed, the rest flee. The bombers complete their run and turn for home. Another successful mission, another day survived. But the effect is more than tactical. Bomber crews start requesting the 357th by name. They want the group that dives, the group that doesn't hesitate. Morale among the heavy bomber squadrons, so long battered and fatigue broken, begins to stabilize. Crews stop seeing the Mustangs as distant escorts. They see them as shields, aggressive, unyielding shields. The statistics back it up. In January 1945, bomber losses over Germany averaged 4% per mission. By March, for formations escorted by groups trained in the Night's Charge, losses dropped to 1.7%. The numbers are stark. The maneuver works, not because it's flashy, because it's mathematically sound. Allied intelligence intercepts Luftwaffe communications. German pilots are warned about the diving Mustangs. They're told to watch above, not just ahead. Some are ordered to avoid engagement entirely if they see the dive forming. Fear, it turns out, is as effective as firepower, and fear is a geometric problem too. By April, the war in Europe is weeks from ending. The Luftwaffe has no fuel, no parts, no pilots, but the lessons of the air war endure. The Night's Charge is dissected in post-war analysis. Engineers study the Mustang's structural limits. Psychologists examine the effects of high-speed dives on enemy decision-making. The conclusion is unanimous. Littge didn't invent a new maneuver. He proved that fear and doctrine had obscured a fundamental truth. Gravity is neutral. Speed is neutral. It's the pilot who decides what they become. Raymond Littge returns to Pennsylvania in August 1945. He's awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. He doesn't attend the ceremony. He goes back to teaching. The same high school, the same classroom, geometry, triangles, angles. His students never know. He doesn't talk about the war, doesn't mention the missions, the dives, the men he killed or saved. When a student asks why geometry matters, he says only this: Because the world is made of angles, and the ones who understand them shape what happens next. He dies in 1983. The obituary is brief: teacher, veteran, survived by 2 daughters. No mention of the night's charge, no mention of the December dive that broke 8 fighters and changed doctrine. The local paper runs it on page 7. But in the archives of the Air Force Historical Research Agency, his name appears in 17 different tactical studies. His gun camera footage is still used in training films. The maneuver he proved lives on in modern fighter doctrine, adapted and refined, but rooted in the same principle. That speed and geometry, combined with courage and logic, can turn one pilot into an unstoppable force. In the end, what Raymond Littge proved wasn't about diving. It was about questioning, about refusing to accept fear as strategy, about trusting mathematics over tradition. He took the sky as it was, saw what others missed, and bent the rules of engagement until they broke in his favor. Not through recklessness, through precision. And in doing so, he gave dozens of bomber crews a chance to see home again. The lesson isn't that boldness wins wars. The lesson is that logic, when paired with the will to act, can rewrite the terms of survival itself. Littge didn't fight the sky. He understood it. And that understanding, more than any gun or bomb, is what changed the air war over Germany in the winter of 1944. His legacy isn't written in medals, it's written in the math, in the angles, in the quiet truth that one man, armed with a chalkboard and a Mustang, proved that the most dangerous thing in the sky isn't the aircraft, it's the mind inside it.